Get to the close co-elliptic burn, or close burn. And like we've said before, that will place Dragon on an orbit roughly co-elliptic with the space station. Now, as a reminder, there are 16 different thrusters available for Dragon to use for these on-orbit maneuvers. The 4 forward bulkhead Draco thrusters is primarily used for these bigger delta velocity maneuvers, like we would be executing here with the close burn. The 12 service section Dracos are around Dragon's base, and those are used for attitude and low impulse translational control. A mix of these have been used for each of these burns, and we of course have redundancy built into Dragon if we run into issues with any of the thrusters during the mission. So yeah, we should be coming up to that burn in about 16 minutes.
And when we get there, it's going to be a fairly long one. It'll be about a 10-minute firing of those thrusters. So once it starts, we'll just continue to hear. We should get some check-ins from the core to the crew as it's going to update them. And then, of course, at the very end, we're looking out for those words, good burn. That's what we want to hear. And they're continually adjusting the timings of these burns based off of just how much Dragon's velocity changes on the way uphill. We have some pretty specific times down to the second where they're initially planned, even days or even weeks out sometimes before they launch, but they're constantly readjusting in real time just how long these burns are going to occur and how long or when they're actually going to happen. And this is just part of the nature of orbital mechanics. We're trying to hit one speeding bullet with another one as Dragon continues to raise its orbit over the next several hours.
Dragon SpaceX for close burn.
Go ahead.
Yes, we are just about 15 minutes out from the close burn. You can expect a tank transition approximately 4 minutes into the burn from land tank to orbit tanks. Additionally, there will be a cabin fan swap during the burn or just after the burn, and SpaceX is go for the close burn.
Go for the close burn, and we copy the tank swap and cabin fan.
All right, that back and forth that we just heard there between Crew Dragon and Core here in Hawthorne was basically just saying that we are go to begin the closed co-elliptic burn, which, like we said, is going to be raising Dragon's orbit.
Yeah, coming up in just under 14 minutes. The crew, you'll hear them get a lot of details in these calls, and for this crew in particular, we know that they've asked for every little tidbit about Dragon to be on their displays or radioed up to them. And literally what they were being told is just some of the different tanks that are feeding these Draco thrusters they're going to be transitioning between, and they told them they're going to have a cabin fan changeover. That's something that would be pretty audible, as just like on board the space station inside Crew Dragon, there's a lot of kind of ambient noise for these crew members, so they're able to hear things like the cabin fan, which is constantly just moving the atmosphere inside because you don't have natural convection in microgravity, so hot air doesn't rise unless so you have to actively be moving that atmosphere the entire time. And so these crew members are trained to expect to hear different sounds, different sights when they're going through these different maneuvers, and so they like to get those kind of updates from the core and the teams down here on the ground, just so they're not caught off guard for anything.
Yeah, exactly. So like we said, this will be the third of 5 major burns that Dragon will be performing, and it is the last burn that will be occurring before Bob and Doug go to sleep. They've already had their meal. They will hopefully be giving us a little tour of Crew Dragon here in the next several minutes. and then they'll have a quick medical evaluation with their flight surgeons, and then they get the okay to take an 8-hour-long nap. And again, we want to make sure that we're allowing them, to the best of their ability, get those full 8 hours. So that is why, we have this close burn, and then we'll do the last couple.
SpaceX Dragon.
Go ahead.
Hey, Laura, would you mind taking the cameras down for a couple minutes if it's convenient?
Sure, we can disable the interior cameras for you. I did have one additional question on the breathing masks when you have a minute.
Go ahead.
Yes, we were wondering if you had pulled them out and stowed them yet.
Yes, we have. They're right next to each of our seats.
Okay, copy. Thank you very much. And Doug, just want to confirm we do have no interior cameras configured.
Thank you.
All right, we are just under 11 minutes now from that next burn. Haven't been tracking any issues with Dragon so far throughout today's flight. Hopefully we keep that up over the next couple of hours until they make their way all the way up to the International Space Station. This is going to be, as Kate was saying, the last burn for quite a while. We won't do the fourth of our 5 burns, that transfer burn, for almost another 11 hours from now. So Dragon's going to just kind of stay in this altitude below the International Space Station, about 10 kilometers or so, roughly co-elliptic with it, for quite a while, pretty much throughout their entire sleep period. And then once we get to right after their wake-up time, we'll be looking to do these final burns, and then they'll be in much closer, just about 2.5 kilometers below the station's orbit, and that'll set them up perfectly for that final approach and docking.
Yeah, we're now at this point 2 hours and 50 minutes into the mission, and it's safe to say that everything has been going extremely well, and to this point, very nominal.
SpaceX Dragon, you're cleared back on board.
Copy all. Thanks a lot. And Dragon SpaceX, when you have a minute, I'd like to sync up with you on the media event.
We are available. Let's talk about it.
Okay, so if you have the PDF open, I've got a couple of sections of talking points. I was thinking that you could get through a couple of those sections. If you have a preference, we are open to what you'd like to do.
Yeah, I think after the introductions and potentially the displays, I think whatever you guys want to do from there would probably work.
Yeah, Doug, if you want to show some good views out the windows, that might be really cool for everyone.
We definitely plan to do that if we're still in a day pass. That'll be cool.
We should have some good views for you during that ground pass.
Excellent.
So, Doug, if you guys can get through section A, B, and maybe C, and just as a reminder, about 2 minutes from LOS on the ground station, if there is a break in your voice comms, I'll give you a reminder of that 2 minutes.
Okay, copy that. Thank you.
All right, this is the team from Hawthorne. We are just under 2.5 minutes from this next burn. It's the closed co-elliptic burn. This will be the third out of the 5 that we're looking to do on our flight up to the International Space Station. We've done 2 of them successfully so far, and this will be the third. This is going to raise the apogee, or the highest point of our orbit, to about 10 kilometers below the International Space Station. Or actually, we already did that with the boost burn. This is going to circularize our orbit, so we're at a constant 10 kilometers below the International Space Station. And so this will be a pretty long burn. It will be just under 10 minutes. And so we'll check it out. We'll hear when the burn initiates, and we'll get some updates from the teams and the crew on board. Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley should get some calls based on how the burn is going. And then, of course, at the very end, we want to be looking out for those words nominal burn or good burn. And counting down, we should be 1 minute away from this burn. "30 seconds to the burn." Less than 10 seconds standing by for confirmation that the burn has started. And so we're seeing data this burn has begun. Again, this is the close burn. We are expecting these Draco engines to fire for about 10 minutes, a little less than 10 minutes total. So the burn has begun. We'll continue to get status updates on it throughout.
Yeah, so right now, Dragon is firing the 4 forward bulkhead Draco thrusters. And like I mentioned before, we use these primarily to help Dragon in the delta velocity maneuvers that, require bigger changes. There are a total of 16 Dracos on Dragon. The other 12, so we got the 4 that are firing right now. The other 12 are located in the service section, and that's the part of Dragon that is around the base. And those are used for attitude and low impulse translational control.
And right now we're coming up on 2 minutes since the start of the burn. Again, we're expecting just under 10 minutes. If you're watching on NASA TV or on the NASA public channel, we do have our post-launch news conference coming up in just about 5 minutes. So we'll have a number of personnel from down there at the Kennedy Space Center. We'll have Administrator Bridenstine and the manager of NASA's Commercial Crew Program, Kathy Leaders, and then a representative from our partners at SpaceX. along with Kirk Shireman, the manager of the International Space Station program, and the NASA chief astronaut Pat Forrester. Again, if you're watching the coverage on NASA TV, on the public channel, that'll be coming up in about 4 minutes. For those of you still following us along on the SpaceX channels, our operational coverage is going to continue. We have this burn already started. It's the third of our fifth, and we are coming up, we're just past 2 minutes and 50 seconds into this burn.
And if you've stayed with us this long throughout the entire webcast, we thank you. It has certainly been an exciting day, but just another thing for you to look forward to. In about 10 minutes, we're hoping to be able to chat with Bob and Doug and get some views from their point of view inside of Dragon and hear more about how the ascent phase went for them.
Yeah, this is the first time we're really going to hear from them. They've been fully in operational mode the entire time, talking with the team down here in Hawthorne, so they're going to bring us on board. We heard a couple of the exchanges, even going to give us a look out the window. We should maybe even be getting a sunset, which will be pretty spectacular. But we're going to get to that after this burn is complete. We're almost at 4 minutes since the burn begun. And again, all told, it'll last just under 10 minutes. All right, we're a little over 5.5 minutes into this burn. Again, right now we're doing the close co-elliptic burn. So the highest point of Dragon's orbit at this point brings it about 10 kilometers lower than the International Space Station's altitude. Not directly below it at this point. We're still pretty far behind it, but we'll be about 10 kilometers below. This burn is just to raise the lowest part of Dragon's orbit, the perigee, up until we'll be on what's called a co-elliptic orbit. So our orbit is at a lower altitude, but it maintains pretty much the exact same lower altitude as the International Space Station. So we'll be on an elliptical orbit, so not a perfect circle, but we'll be at a steady 10 kilometers lower than the space station itself. And this will be the third of those 5 burns. This will be point. Again, pretty much the same speed as the International Space Station. They're starting off a good ways below it and a good ways behind it. But in 19 hours from launch to contact with the station, that's all it's going to take for them to get to their new home for the next several months. And we just crossed 8 minutes into the burn. Again, this all told will be just a shade under 10 minutes.
The completion of this burn will be the third of 5 major burns that Crew Dragon will be performing. Again, this is all autonomous. Dragon is self-steering. So after this after this particular burn completes, Bob and Doug will, within the next hour or two, be on their way to La La Land.
Yeah, on their way to their first sleep inside Dragon. They'll first have about an hour of what's known as pre-sleep, and anyone familiar with schedules on the International Space Station, you'll know they have pre-sleep and post-sleep, and it's really just free time for the crew members themselves. A lot of them in their pre-sleep, it could be eating your dinner, just kind of getting ready for bed, brushing your teeth, all of those kind of normal household things you do. They're also doing them in space, and it's really just an hour for them to get ready, and then they'll have a hard scheduled 8 hours. They won't probably fall asleep right at the start of that sleep period, but they get 8 hours until they wake up. And we should hopefully be getting, I don't want to spoil it now, but we might be getting some wake-up music hearkening back to our space shuttle days. So you'll have to make sure you tune in when they wake up. The crew wake up right now is targeted for 1:45 a.m. Pacific. And we're standing by for the finish of that burn.
Dragon SpaceX for closed burn performance.
Go ahead, and you're a little bit weak.
Copy, how now?
Much better, thank you.
Okay, so the closed burn is complete and was nominal, and I have a couple more words for you on the media event.
Okay, copy. Nominal burn. Go ahead.
The request is for the 2 task lights in 2 and 3, so your task lights for your seats, to be turned off prior to the media event. And additionally, we have a request to talk about the 0G indicator that you guys took on board with you.
We already had that in the script. And the task lights are off. Thanks.
Copy, thanks.
And we are ready anytime. If you guys want to do the count, it looks like the ground station will be up in about a little over a minute. Just let us know.
Yep, we will give you a call.
All right, we had a successful close burn, so that's 3 down, 2 more to go, but we won't get to those until tomorrow when it's time for the crew to wake up. That's going to do it for me for now. I'm going to hand off to my colleague Leah Cheshire, who's going to be hanging out with Kate and everybody else following along as we get ready for the crew to go to sleep. First, we're going to have that really cool media event. I just heard they plan to tell us what that 0G indicator. Some of you might have seen a very sparkly dragon floating around inside the capsule. We're finally going to figure out what that is. So I'm signing off, but I'm going to stick around just to watch that because I still don't know and I really need to know. But it's been an amazing day. It was an amazing launch. I'm going to be back when it's time to dock. Thanks, everybody, for sticking with us. You're in great hands with Kate and Leah for the next couple of hours. I'll see you soon.
All right, see you in the morning, Dan. So like you said, we're going to be stepping into a little media event. This will be the first opportunity that we've had to hear from Bob and Doug in non-procedural communications, basically meaning that everything we've heard from them have been pretty to the T in terms of, hey, this is what we're doing, this is how we're feeling. This little event that we have coming up, we'll be able to see the Dragon crew capsule from their perspective and get a little bit more info about how they felt on the way up.
Dragon SpaceX, we are ready for your verbal count. Hold the cabin mic in front of your face with your mouth visible to the camera and count verbally to 15.
1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
And Dragon SpaceX, we will give you a call when we're ready.
Dragon copies.
Dragon SpaceX, you are go to begin the media event.
Dragon copies. Well, everyone, welcome aboard Dragon. My name is Doug. Next to me is Bob. You probably know him. We're so glad to be with you this evening and welcome you on board Dragon. Got a couple things we want to talk about first before we kind of show you around. The first is kind of a tradition we've had over the years with spacecraft going way back to the Mercury era. And then a tradition that's been carried on ever since with all our space vehicles, including the Soyuz. We're given the honor to name this capsule. I know most of you at SpaceX especially know it as Capsule 206, but I think all of us thought that we could maybe do a little bit better than that. So without further ado, we would like to welcome you aboard Capsule Endeavour. We chose Endeavour for a few reasons. One, because of this incredible endeavor NASA, SpaceX, and the United States has been on since the end of the shuttle program back in 2011. The other reason we named it Endeavour is a little more personal to Bob and I. We both had our first flights on Shuttle Endeavour, and it just meant so much to us to carry on that name. That's what we decided to go with. So we hope you enjoy that name, and once again, welcome on board.
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome aboard Endeavour, the SpaceX vehicle headed to the International Space Station. Today, we accomplished the first flight off the Florida coast in quite some time, and Doug and I were really proud to have an opportunity to be a part of that. We're doing it in a brand new spaceship, a spaceship that's a lot different than its namesake Endeavour, the space shuttle, in that it has touch display screens that allow us to accomplish most of the interfacing requirements that we have. We'll have Doug pans over and points at the display in front of me. You can see the forward view that we had during the maneuvers that we most recently did. You can look out the window. It looks like the centerline camera doesn't have a lot of content on it now. We're kind of pointed into space so that the windows can see the Earth below us. But we've got the capability to interface with the vehicle, and it's kind of interesting. There's a command. This little button over here is actually what the commands are for our displays. One thing that does get lost is there is a extensive button panel down below as well. So over on this side, we can turn the displays on and off, as well as send some commands for some contingency situations. On the other side, we have the ability to deploy chutes and things like that on entry. So we do have some buttons, but the primary interface is these displays. So nice, new, modern cockpit that we've got for our compared to our namesake, the Space Shuttle Endeavour. I'm going to migrate a little bit away from our seats here, and Doug from his seat is going to continue to try to follow me so you can tell what can be seen from the seat that he sits in. So from his seat, when he is in the vehicle, strapped in, this is what his view actually looks like. You can see a window off to the one side. We each have a window that we can view out and see what's going on outside. That was exciting on ascent for us to be able to see the arm rotate away from the pad, and that's when we both, I think, knew that we were going to launch today. So that was super cool. I've got one on my side as well. The hatch that we came in is the hatch that's right behind me. It is a little bit of a tight quarters, but I'm going to try to demonstrate some of the capability that we have now that we're in zero gravity. So I think I was requested to do a backflip. I'm going to kind of do a side spin, which is a little bit of a permutation on that request. So hopefully you can see what it's like to actually float in zero gravity, and Doug and I are super excited that we got the opportunity to do this again today, even before the end of May. So that was super cool. We did, it turns out, end up with one stowaway on board our vehicle when we launched today. It was not just Doug and I who accomplished the launch here. We do have an Apatosaurus aboard. We both have two boys who are super interested in dinosaurs. And we collected up all the dinosaurs between the two houses and trimmer, the Apatosaurus, got the vote from the boys to make the trip into space today with us. And so that was a super cool thing for us to get a chance to do for both of our sons, who I hope are super excited to see their toys floating around with us on board. I'm sure they would rather be here given the opportunity, but hopefully they're proud of this as well.
Okay, as we work our way towards one of the windows, unfortunately it's getting a little bit dark, but I don't know if Bob can pan over here. We just passed off of the coast of Newfoundland and we're headed over to over the Atlantic right now. I don't know if you can get a good picture of that. Anyway, hopefully you enjoy that view as we pass over the Atlantic. And I think with that, we will work ourselves back into the seats and wrap things up for this evening.
So Doug's there making a nice big smile for the camera. I hope you enjoyed the trip today with us on board the Dragon capsule Endeavour with our friend Trimmer, the Apatosaurus, and Doug and I. We just would like to thank SpaceX, we'd like to thank NASA, and we'd like to thank the American people for the opportunity today. And we're really proud of the entire team that was able to accomplish human spaceflight again from the Florida coast. Just a wonderful experience. Doug and I are just so proud to be a part of it, and just want to thank everybody who gave us this opportunity and worked so hard to make this happen today.
So with that, I think it'll be good night from Capsule Endeavour. Good night to everyone at NASA, at SpaceX, and the United States, and congratulations to the teams that got us into orbit. And we're looking forward to seeing Chris Cassidy and his Russian colleagues on board the International Space Station tomorrow morning.
Good night, Megan and Theo.
And Karen and Jack.
And Dragon SpaceX, thank you so much for that. I know everyone really enjoyed seeing Dragon and seeing how much all of you are, or the two of you are enjoying it.
It was our pleasure, Laura.
In case if you've just joined us, that was our first look inside the Crew Dragon capsule with Bob and Doug. Our first opportunity to hear what their experience has been like thus far. I think I can speak on behalf of anyone that's involved in this program that we're really honored that you guys chose such a meaningful name for the capsule. And we're very proud to have Bob and Doug, our favorite dads in space, on board Capsule Endeavour. As of now, we have completed 3 of 5 major burns, and as you heard Bob and Doug mention, they're going to be going to bed pretty soon. But we have one more thing coming up before then.
Yeah, and hi everybody, I'm Leah Cheshire of NASA, here to journey with you through these overnight hours as the crew is still on their way to the International Space Station. We've got some big things coming up. In about 45 minutes, we'll be looking for the crew to have their PMC, or private medical conference. These are standard for every astronaut flying in space, and they actually date back to the Apollo missions.
Well, we're really happy to have you on board. I'm sure Dan was exhausted. And yeah, like we mentioned before, we're going to be bringing you coverage throughout the entire mission, overnight, yes, all the way through until Bob and Doug actually hop on board the International Space Station early tomorrow morning. It is a 19-hour journey to the station, and at this point we are approaching T plus 3 hours and 30 minutes. So it's safe to say they've got a ways to go, but as we just saw from that awesome look inside the capsule, it seems like they're getting pretty cozy in there.
Yeah, that's a pretty good view. I mean, we got to see the whole thing. We got to see the screens and their seats, which will turn into beds. Mm-hmm. Correct?
They'll stay they will sleep in their seats, but the seats will keep the shape that they're in currently. So they will be in a bit of a chair position, different than their beds on the International Space Station. But yeah, so those PMCs, or private medical conference, is basically the last thing that they have to do before they get to take a well-deserved sleep.
Yeah, they'll be able to talk to medical doctors, NASA flight doctors, they're flight surgeons as they're sometimes called on the ground, talking through their health and getting the feedback on their current status. All of the crew members have a flight surgeon assigned to their mission. The flight surgeon is dedicated to their health care throughout the duration of the mission, including training, on orbit, and when they return. That means providing remote care to the astronauts while they're in flight or on the station.
I think it's safe to say that, all of us that have been experiencing the global pandemic that we have, receiving something so important as healthcare virtually, it was something new for a lot of us. But, this type of healthcare procedure is standard procedure for NASA astronauts because, of course, we have to be looking out for any changes in their health and just general health checks while they're on station and, the entire journey up to station. So I think this is just another...
Dragon SpaceX for camera settings.
Go ahead, Laura.
Just wanted to let you know that all the interior cameras are off, and we will leave them in this configuration until post-sleep.
Okay, we copy. You'll leave the interior cameras in the off position until post-sleep.
That is correct, and we have also powered off the floater camera, so you are go to store it if you would like.
Thanks, Laura. We'll put that in work and get the floater camera stowed away and have it ready for tomorrow. And just wanted to say, good to talk to you from low Earth orbit finally, instead of just from upstairs or downstairs.
Yeah, I agree, Bob. It's nice to hear your voice in orbit rather than upstairs.
I did just want to make sure that for solidarity purposes, there's no coffee drinking or tea drinking going on down there, right?
I have to take the mask off to drink coffee, so, some coffee.
So that back and forth that we just heard there between Crew Dragon and Mission Control here in Hawthorne, just letting them know that all the cameras are now turned off, and they'll stay turned off until after the post-sleep, or basically until Bob and Doug are wide awake tomorrow morning. And that's just for privacy purposes, obviously, while they're doing their health check and sleeping. And you may have heard them mention the upstairs, downstairs. That is referring to our training facilities here in Hawthorne. We actually gave you a pretty cool look into those training facilities earlier in the webcast, so you might want to rewind your feed to catch up to see what that actually looked like in person. But essentially, Bob and Doug, like we've been saying, they've been here on site in Hawthorne for months. They are part of the SpaceX team, really hitting a home run in terms of they're here training with our team. We all work as one, and it has been that way for months. They have gone through rehearsals and practices of every possible procedure that they would go through, and so that's where that upstairs downstairs comes in, because Mission Control would be down here as they're walking through the procedures in the upstairs training capsule. And of course, they're not allowed to drink any caffeine until they get to station, so that's a nice little thought that mission controllers might also be withholding in solidarity, but a difficult task, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's been a long day for everybody, so I can understand where, I don't know, they might have to sneak one in and not tell the crew.
Yeah.
Who knows? We'll see.
So like we said before, we're going to the Bob and Doug, our dads in space, will be beginning their private medical conferences. Again, those are